Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
everyone. Hi.
So today's topic is, why do we focus on the negative? Why do we fixate on the negative, and what we can do to change that?
Right, yes. So there's two parts to the question. So the first part of the question is, why do we fixate on the negative? And then, so we'll answer that first, and then we'll go into how you can stop doing that. All right, so in the first instance, the reason we fixate on the negative, even when there's lots of positive things going on around us, is because the negative represents danger, and we're designed to survive. And so if there are, there's beautiful flowers and friends and family, and then there's a bear, right, that's going to attack us, or that's threatening to attack us, we are designed to focus on the bear and fixate on that bear until that danger is gone, because we can't relax, and we won't be enjoying the flowers and the community and that for very long if the bear gets us. So the way that works is stress chemicals that create negative feelings, so adrenaline, cortisol, all the other stress chemicals are stronger. The effects on the body are more powerful and stronger than the effects of endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and other feel-good chemicals. So, and the reason for that is so that it gets our attention and holds our attention until the threat has gone. So the unexpected bill, somebody being mean, being cheated, the threat of losing your job, all of those kind of things, because we seldom run into bears these days, all of those things are the equivalent of the bear as far as the subconscious is concerned, because the brain and body can't tell the difference between, and not having enough money to pay my bills and a real physical immediate threat to my life. The same chemicals are produced. So when you worry about you may lose your job, or I don't know where I'm going to get the money to pay this bill, or somebody's going to be angry with me, all of those kind of worries, you're producing the same chemicals that you would be producing if your life was in danger.
And a lot of that has to do with interpretation.
Right.
It's how we're interpreting a particular situation. So and everybody's interpretation of a particular situation is going to be completely unique to them.
Yes.
And that's kind of the other part of this, of the fear of why we end up fixating on things. First of all, we're fixated on it because we have interpreted whatever the situation is as a dangerous situation, as dangerous as that bear.
Right.
And we now see that bill, or we see that comment that somebody made to us as having the same value as the bear,
right,
or whatever, some life-threatening danger.
Right.
And those chemicals then kick in because our subconscious is designed to keep us safe.
Right.
And that's what it's doing.
And when we say, when Steve says we see it the same, not consciously, of course. So you're not consciously going, this bill is going to attack me like a bear. Obviously it's your subconscious, and your subconscious can't tell the difference. So we're designed to focus on the negative in order, and the reason that is so difficult to not do is because it's a survival technique. Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's like you've got a guard dog that is barking at anybody that walks past. It's not, so it's barking as if someone's breaking in, but it's just somebody walking past, and that's what's happening all the time. So something happens, you worry about, I have to make a phone call, and I'm worried about giving this person this news, or I'm worried about, I haven't got something done in time for a deadline, and that dog is barking as if you're going to die. So so that's the why. Now to the how to not do it. So obviously the techniques we teach will give long-term permanent solutions to this. So changing the childhood memories that are creating the references that Steve was just talking about, that are causing that reaction, because as he said, not everybody is going to have the same reaction to the same things. It'll depend on what childhood references you have.
Yeah. So, you know, just by way of a quick example of that, why do we end up focusing? So an example of something negative that we're focusing on. I mean, we're talking about a financial thing, a bill. It could be a physical, something negative that we're focused on either a physical feeling. We may have an illness or something, or it could just be a comment or a situation that somebody has made. And again, you know, you may have had 100 compliments on something, and somebody says one thing that's sort of negative, and then why are you stuck there?
Yeah.
Why are you stuck in that place and only fixated on the one thing, and you've had 100 compliments on it? It's going to depend on our own individual references for that.
Yeah.
It's going to go back to what's there from childhood. What's that reminding us of? We can't have a reaction in a situation unless we've had a previous reference for it. Right. And that's what we're talking about. We want to go back and find those things. We want to go back and change those references so it'll change how we're actually responding in the moment.
Yeah.
So we're having that reaction, we're having that fear in the moment, not necessarily because of the situation,
right,
but because of what we've experienced in the past and now how we're interpreting that situation.
Right. So that's the, you know, so the long-term thing is changing the childhood memories, childhood references, and practicing ESC, going through the ESC program to master. That's the long-term thing, and we've done other videos on that, and we'll put links in the description of this video for those. Yeah. But in the meantime, we're going to give you what do you do in the meantime while you're still doing that? How do you cope? Okay, so here's something, here's a little technique that will help you. First step, the first step is to recognize, is to acknowledge, recognize that the reason you are focused on this particular negative thing is because you're designed for survival. And because your brain and body think it's a bear. Okay, so that's the first thing, is to recognize that. The second part of this is to make peace with the worst case scenario. So how bad can this get? And the reason this works is because we are most afraid of the unknown. We create all kinds of, you know, amazing scenarios that will never happen. But also, even when the threat is, you know, a real one. So, for example, I don't have enough money to pay my electricity bill. So that's a fact. You know, I don't have enough money to pay my electricity bill, and there are real consequences to that. Because of the power of the stress chemicals, the effects of the stress chemicals, because they're designed for survival, that effect is blown up into a much bigger proportion. So when you aim to make peace with the worst case scenario, so you think, okay, so I don't have enough money to pay my electricity bill, what's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? They're going to cut my electricity off. Okay, and then what will I do? I will use candles, and I'll go to the library to use the internet, and go right down to the very worst case scenario, so you know what the worst it can be, and make peace with that. And the reason for doing that is because while you're feeling negatively, while you're feeling the fear and focusing on the negative, the stress chemicals, the fight, freeze, flight chemicals have caused the prefrontal cortex of your brain to go offline. The blood drains from that, and so you don't have your full cognitive thinking. So there may be solutions and options and opportunities that you cannot see or think of or take into consideration or process the information, because that part of your brain is not working right now. It's offline. So you want to go to now I had this many times, but here's an example.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say making peace with the worst case. What is making peace really entail?
So here's a wonderful example. So this is an example of the first time I used this technique. I was unable to pay my rent again. Mm-hmm. So this is quite a few years ago. My rent was £500 and I had less than £100 in my bank account. And the rent was already late, and I was in such a state, and I didn't know what, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I was crying, and I was really scared. Mm-hmm. And my sister said to me, what's the worst that can happen? How bad can this get? Mm-hmm. So you drill down to exactly what you're worried about. So the worst that can happen is I get evicted. And she said, okay, and then what? So, okay, well, I don't know. I have to go to a shelter, or I end up, how bad can it get? Well, end up sleeping in the street. I mean, on a bench somewhere or something. Okay, and then what? What will happen then? Mm-hmm. So and you drill down, you think, yeah, I guess, okay, then I suppose I would start again. I would look for work, or and then mm-hmm. Then your brain starts looking for solutions, as opposed to being frozen in fear. Now, the likelihood of you getting to that very worst case scenario is very low, because you've started to think of solutions before you get there. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. While you are sitting in wherever you are right now, worrying about what could happen, you might as well be there. So in other words, I'll end up sleeping on a bench. Now, as I'm feeling the stress, I'm feeling the same feelings I would if I was sleeping on the bench. I might as well be sleeping on the bench right now, but I'm not, I'm here.
And if you remember, your subconscious can't tell the difference from reality or your imagination.
Yeah.
So when you're when you're picturing yourself on that park bench, mm-hmm. or in the worst case scenario, your subconscious can't tell the difference, and it's automatically throwing you into the same chemical state as if it was happening.
Yes. So the answer is, you go to the worst, think about what's the worst that can happen. What am I really worried about here? And I tell you what, in that situation, it wasn't being evicted that was the scariest. For me, the scariest thing, the thing I was most frightened of, was picking up the phone and calling the landlord and asking them if I could have another week. That terrified me more than being evicted. And so I took some time and I imagined picking up the phone, and I could feel the fear. It was terrifying. And then I asked myself, what's the worst that can happen? Mm-hmm. Well, the worst that could happen was they would be angry with me. And what would that do? So the reason for going through this process is because when you get into that state, your subconscious is behaving as if you are about to die. And then your conscious mind is buying into that and coming up with all kinds of terrible reasons why this is happening, and how bad it can, how terrible it can be. So you want to break it down so that you get to the point where you realize, yeah, I suppose my life isn't in danger. I'm not actually going to die any minute, so and that starts to bring the stress chemicals down, which brings your prefrontal cortex back online, which means you can then start strategizing, finding solutions, and seeing opportunities that you couldn't have seen. And then you'll find yourself going, oh, I could do that, or I could phone so-and-so, or there's that option. But you can't see it from when you're in the state. So what then happened was I made peace with the fact that I could pick up the phone and they could be angry with me, be, aggressive, whatever it was, and tell me that I have to leave the apartment, that I have to go, or the house, get kicked out. And I made peace with that. I thought, if that happens, then I will do such and such and such and such. And then I picked up the phone. And the wonderful thing is, they were lovely about it. And they said, well, okay, we'll give you another week. And then the money came in. They gave me till Friday or whatever, and the money came in on the Wednesday, and I was able to pay it early. So once you get out of that I'm going to die state and calm down, then you will very seldom, if ever, have to actually deal with the worst case scenario. But if you do, you know what's going to happen.
Right. And
it's getting the unknown anymore.
Getting yourself out of that state will put you into a place of being able to see possibilities that you can't see when you're in the state.
Right.
When you get into that when you're focused on the negative and you're in that place where your prefrontal cortex is offline, I'll say me, I know that I can't see things. I go into that freeze place, and my brain it feels like it's in a complete fog. I'm like, come on, this is crazy. You feel like I should be able to think my way out of this, but I can't do it. It feels like I'm just, and when I'm thinking that this particular method, what you're describing, reminds me of one of those stories from the Stoics, and I'm trying to remember them. All I've got is a bitter piece of that story, and I think others may know what I'm talking about. But it's the story of being in the cave, and the person is fixated on the wall of the cave and seeing this huge shadow, and really that's kind of what we get fixated on the shadow. And if we just turn around and see what's causing the shadow, and you recognize that it's just a little mouse standing in front of the fire,
right.
And then the trance is broken. You recognize that you can turn into your worst fear and face your worst fear and make peace with that, or in other words, okay, that's the absolute worst that it can get. Somehow that breaks that trance. And it allows this part of your brain to come back online, and now I'm able to see things that I couldn't see before.
Yeah. So, and another example, let's say people are, let's say you're doing what you love for a living, and it's not working. Or you're not getting the response from clients or whatever. You're not getting the clients you wanted, or something's going. It's not going the way you want it to go, and it looks like it's going to fail. Go for how bad can this get? What's the thing you're most frightened of? What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I have to go and, I don't have enough money to pay my bills from doing this. Okay, so what will you do then? I'll have to go and get another job. What's wrong with that? How bad can that be? Well, everybody's going to judge me and think I failed. Good. How bad is that? What's wrong with that? What's that going to do? What will you do then? So worst case scenario, I'll go and do a job, some sort of job, and be making a bit of money. Nobody's ever going to talk to me again. Everybody hates me. I'll make new friends. So, take it right down. And then the likelihood is that the worst will never actually happen, because again, you're bringing that part of your brain online, you'll come up with solutions. So to recap, the reason we focus on the negative, the reason we become fixated on the negative, even when there are positive things in our lives, is because we are designed that way. We're designed to focus on the danger in order to survive. So the first step is to recognize that. When you go, that's what's happening inside me. The dog is barking and there's no burglar, it's just people walking past. Then the second step is to go to how bad can this get? Drill down. What's the worst case scenario? Make peace with that. That'll bring your prefrontal cortex back online, and you will then be able to move forward with solutions and opportunities and options that you hadn't seen before. Hope that helps.
I was going to add one more little thing to that. That as you're becoming intentional about changing the focus and leaning into the fear, I think that another little technique that you can use is practicing the opposite of worst case scenario.
Yes.
Because what we're doing, either unconsciously or just habitually, we have done this all of our life.
Instinctively.
Instinctively,
Because it's
we're going to the worst case scenario. What's the worst possible thing that can happen? Now, it's all happening within our imagination.
Mhm.
So that imaginary scene of being now homeless and out on the street, I'm creating that in my imagination.
Mhm.
Once you recognize that you're doing that,
Mhm.
now make it an intentional practice to do exactly the opposite.
Yes. How
So-
good can it get?
Practice best case scenarios
Yeah.
and see what that ends up doing to your chemical state.
Mhm.
Because the more we continue to allow ourselves to practice the worst case scenario, we're putting ourselves in that stress chemical state.
Yeah.
And those stress chemicals, at least the very least that they're doing is making us feel bad.
Mhm.
So we're unintentionally choosing to put ourselves in that feel bad state. And so that's the least that it's doing. But it's also, if you continue to keep yourself in that state, those negative stress chemicals are having a physical impact on your body. They're impacting your immune system, organs in your body. So intentionally choose to practice best case scenario, even if it doesn't feel right, natural, doesn't feel like it's possible. Continue to put yourself in that place of practicing best case scenario.
Yes.
It's just your imagination, but so is the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And why not put yourself in practicing those good chemicals?
Very good. And then, as always, let us know if you've got any questions in the comments below, and we'll put the links to further resources, how you can start to practice ESC and change your childhood memories, as well as using what we've just described today. And we'll see you next week. Have a good week.
Bye for now.
Bye.